Hi everyone, welcome back to the Dish on Aging. Today is March 28th, 2021, and this is episode 14. Our topic today, I think, is a very important topic. We hear a lot about caregiver stress, caregiver burnout. Today I want to talk about being a care recipient and what are factors about the caregiving experience that can reduce what can the care recipient do to reduce the impact on the caregiver, because let's face it, if the caregiver gets burned out or depressed or starts up with their own medical problems, then that's not going to be a good thing for the care recipient either. So the goal is to keep caregiver burden at a minimum to the extent that we can. Okay, so I was talking about today's presentation with my dear friend, Gamma S, and she had something important that she wanted to share. And that has to do with the difference between helping somebody with something, so being a good neighbor, if you will, versus being a caregiver. There are times when Gamma would have trouble with this. She said, when people get older, they tell me that they only need a little bit of help. How is it that being a caregiver can become a burden? Isn't it a positive, she said, that we want to be kind and do good things and help other people out? So let me again go with the still picture that Gamma S has provided along with her telephone call in about this very topic.
Hi everyone, this is Gamma S here. I'm so glad we're talking about this topic today. Yesterday was a nice sunny warm day and I got my power washer out of the shed, was getting ready to set up to power wash all the dirt and grime off the side of my house. And my friends, who are also my neighbors, Hank and Donna, came over and they said, Gamma, we want to help you start this. We have one of these power washers, and when they have been in the shed for a year, since last year, they can be difficult to start, but we do this a lot, so we want to help you with this. So I said, okay, yes, this power wash has been in the shed for a few years now, and I'm looking at the directions. It's more complex than I thought, so yes, please help me. And then I was so glad I had their help because it took about 5 or 10 minutes, but we got the power washer going. And I asked my friends Donna and Hank what were they going to do on this day, and they explained that they are going food shopping for Hank's mom. She lives in her apartment. She uses a walker to get around. She does have home health that comes in. And Hank and Donna do her shopping. They help her with her food shopping every week. And they are so glad that they can do that for her. And I said to them, good for you. You two are able to be caregivers for your mom. And they said, yeah, we're just really glad we've been able to help keep her out of the nursing home. So here's a picture of me spending the rest of the day power washing my home as Hank and Donna go to their caregiver tasks. So I thought this would be a nice demonstration this week of the topic at hand. Thank you, and I look forward to talking with you all next week.
For bringing that to my attention, I do this geriatric work, and I've been doing it for so many years. Really, I'm going to say the last 35 years of my life, I have been in different ways interacting with older adults. So some of the most basic concepts I don't even see anymore. So I'm so glad that you pointed that out to me, that there is a difference between being a caregiver and being a kind neighbor and helping somebody with a task. I'd like to follow up and be a little more expansive. What Gamma showed was she just needed help. Let's look at the care recipient and the level of functioning of the care recipient. Gamma S simply needed help getting the power washer started. Then she spent the rest of the afternoon actually operating the power washer outside of her home. And whereas, I'm not sure if it was Donna or Hank's mother, is at home with a walker, she doesn't get out of the house much. So she really is dependent on Hank and Donna to do her food shopping. And that's what puts Hank and Donna in the category of caregivers. If the mother didn't have that care, she wouldn't be able to live like that. So that's the difference between the same people helping a neighbor start a machine that the neighbor operates. That's just being helpful, friendly neighbor. Everyone should do that if they can. And then to be a caregiver is more complex, but more to the point. To be a caregiver is providing life-sustaining support to another human being. And so that is really important. And it is because of that, being a caregiver can become overwhelming some of the time to a lot of the time. So what I want to talk about is when research has been done in the last few years of caregivers and asking them what contributes to your emotional experience of burden. And they've said two things. And let's talk about those two things, because those are the kinds of things that care recipients then can focus on to potentially mitigate or reduce the impact of caregiver burden. I also want to look at benefits. There are benefits to being a caregiver. Just so you all know, like the average age of a caregiver is like 85 years old. Most caregivers are well in along in their lives. They're dealing with their own medical concerns. They're caring for themselves, and they're also caring for a care dependent individual as well. So, and there are benefits. We want to be careful about aging, getting older. Let's just not put that just automatically in the box of all negative. Let's not put being a caregiver in the box of being all burden, because it's not. When we start to look at this, we find that caregiving is at times a burden and other times it's a benefit. People who are caregivers in their 60s, 70s, and 80s actually show a benefit relative to peers who are not caregivers. So I want to approach today's conversation from that perspective. So a burden, when surveys are done, caregivers will say part of the burden, the emotional burden of being a caregiver that they experience, is that when the care recipient doesn't recognize everything that they do for the care of the care recipient. And so an obvious potential mitigation factor is if the caregiver is starting to experience burnout or becoming overwhelmed, it might be helpful for the care recipient to start keeping track of what is that person doing for me every day that I might just be taking for granted and not even noticing. So it can be important then to start saying to oneself, gee, tomorrow I'm going to start keeping track. What are all the little and big things that somebody who's been identified as my caregiver is doing for me each day? So just recognizing that, taking a moment I want to focus and see what that looks like when I'm paying attention to it each day. The other aspects of being a caregiver, benefit of being a caregiver, is what is the relationship of the caregiver to the care recipient? Do you know we've actually found that people who are caregivers who are not family members actually benefit emotionally from helping somebody out, being a caregiver. to somebody who's not their family member. And of course, spouses will experience sometimes the most significant caregiver burden, and then other family members less significant than spouses. So hypothetically, it might be, to what extent is the caregiver genuinely volunteering or stepping up to the task of being a caregiver, versus did somebody kind of being a caregiver just come to their lap and they really don't have all that much of a say in it, or they probably do, and under no circumstances will they put their loved one in a nursing home. So then all the care responsibilities falls on them. So that's important to look at. What is the relationship? And we can't change that, but one way we can mitigate that, if we are a care recipient and we see that our caregiver is becoming overwhelmed, depressed, burned out, maybe bringing in a non-family member helper. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is through a home health agency. So something to consider. Oh, this is going to be obvious. Many people who have been caregivers, a lot of times we've been caregivers to other people at different points in our life. Today's conversation is about being a caregiver specifically to somebody who is of advanced age and experiencing an age-related decline. So the caregivers say that their emotional caregiver burden is most significant when the care recipient doesn't appreciate, so they can see what's being done, but they don't appreciate it, and they might even criticize the care that's being provided. Particularly if the criticism is every day, it's a real problem. So possible potential mitigating factors if somebody is a care recipient, the most important, remember simply to say thank you when somebody is helping you schedule your medical appointments, when somebody who is taking your dog to get groomed every week or month, however often that's needed. And also not complaining. I know for many people it can be a drag. Their doctor's asking them to take so many medications a day. And just remember, complain in your head, but just kind of try not to do that in front of your caregiver, because that's the kind of thing that caregivers are identifying in surveys that is contributing to their burden more than anything else. So, in summary, remember to make note of what the caregiver is doing each day for you. Remember to say thank you, minimize the complaining, and also keep in mind the difference between being somebody doing a kind thing for you versus somebody who is providing you help that if you didn't receive that help, you probably wouldn't be able to live safely on your own from day to day. So there is a big difference between somebody just being kind and helpful versus somebody who is a caregiver. So try to keep that in mind. And some of us may have difficulty. If we need help getting through a day, I mean, maybe we've gone 70, 80, 90 years where we haven't needed help with anything. So we have to be careful we're not putting any negative statements or complaints in the direction of our caregiver. So those are the kinds of tips. Those are the things that someone can do if they are a care recipient and they want to reduce or minimize, or to the extent they have control, to prevent even some certain extent of caregiver burden. Those are the types of behaviors that you can do. Okay, and thanks again for Gamma S for providing her beautiful, beautiful drawing for us to understand. It's so nice to see Hank and Donna in the car there driving off to the food store. And to give you an update on Gamma's animation, what a fun project this is turning in for me. And it will be a few months. And then I should have Gamma in animation. In the meantime, I am just feeling so pleased and joyful that she is able to submit a hand drawing and a telephone audio for us all so that we can get her perspective on what I am presenting each week. So, since today is the last Sunday of the month of March, I want to talk about the topics I will be discussing in the month of April. Okay, so on Sunday, April 4th, I will be talking about what are the strengths and vulnerabilities of aging. April 11th would be, does avoiding a problem ever help? And the quick answer is yes. People don't believe that. We hear all the time, if you ignore a problem, it'll only get worse. Well, I'm going to explain to you on April 11th how it is from an emotional standpoint and sometimes from a practical standpoint. You will be better off if you ignore a problem. April 18th will be how can I talk with my spouse about our financial future. This is super, super important, and every couple, every family is going to be different with this. Some are comfortable talking about money, and I'm going to be talking on April 18th about how to go about doing this. April 25th, I'll be talking about what is terminal decline and will more physical therapy help. I'm going to define what terminal decline is, and that is when we're at the end of our life. And, I showed that graph how normal aging is a slow, steady, consistent decline. And the last 2 or 3 months of our lives, if you look at it statistically, will be a sudden drop in level of functioning. And that can be very jarring for family members and for the patient themselves. And I'm going to be talking about terminal decline just so people know what that is. And we'll discuss whether or not physical therapy is something that can help. Okay, thanks a lot. I don't know, enjoy the end of March. Enjoy March Madness if you like watching the college basketball games. Okay, have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.